You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here with Kristie Fortmann-Doser with the Domestic Violence Intervention Program. And it's Domestic Violent Intervention Program Month, right? Did I say that right?
It is.
That
October
DVIP.
Yes, it is. You're correct.
So good. Well, welcome. I know you're building a new building. There's a lot going on. And I just say, can you start out and tell us a little bit about your background as a director and where you came from, how you got to Iowa City, education, just whatever fun things you want to tell us about yourself.
Oh, I don't know about fun things, but I am
interesting things.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I am your quintessential Iowa small town girl.
Okay.
Grew up in Bluegrass, Iowa,
Oh, yeah.
and in Dubuque, Iowa. Those are my home stomping grounds.
Quad Cities, Bluegrass, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And at the time, we had like 351 people living there, I think.
Wow.
So
the mail department, you didn't have, they knew all the names, right?
every single one, and all of their kids and their dogs.
Yeah. Probably had a party line too, right? On
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that being from Iowa and loving Iowa, obviously, had to go to college here at the University of Iowa. And I started out going to college here, checking it out. But I experienced some things that were not good. One of the reasons that I do this work is because I'm a survivor of sexual violence. And I was very, very lucky to get some tremendous support from advocates and individuals who do the work that I do today.
Were you younger when that happened?
Yes, I was. I was 18.
18.
And it did lots of things to me. That's the only way to put it. It. But
Where did you get help then?
I'm sorry?
Where did you get help then?
I actually got it in Ames because
Ames.
After it happened, I moved in with my sister for a short time. And just really to get the respite and care that I needed. And it wasn't safe for me to stay in the area. What a lot of people don't know about sexual violence and domestic violence is that perpetrators typically stalk their partners or stalk the individual afterwards for some time. And so for my own safety and well-being, I went and lived with my sister for a short time and talked with advocates from the Access program, which was at the Iowa State campus.
Why do they still continue to stalk you? Curious.
It's a control thing. It's absolutely a control thing. For victims of intimate partner violence, domestic violence, when you leave, and I'm going to back up for just a second, the most common thing that people ask when you're out in the community is, why does she stay? That is the most common question we get. Why does she stay? And what I tell people is that leaving is absolutely the riskiest move a victim will ever make. They are 72 times more likely to be killed in the 2 weeks after they leave than they are at any point during the relationship. Wow. And nationally, the average is 21 months that a partner stalks their victim after they leave. And so, leaving is incredibly risky. And so for many victims, leaving is ultimately what you want to do, but you may not be able to do it right away, or may not be able to successfully stay away because of the things that individual does. It's about control. The partner who is battering doesn't know where their victim is. They don't know who they're talking to. And they don't know if they're in threat of being caught at what they've been doing. And so they ramp up. So, yeah.
Okay. So back to 18, you had an experience, and then you came to University of Iowa, right?
Yes.
And what did you major in?
I majored in gender and women's studies and worked through the English department as well. That was a really, really important part of my growing and learning because we really looked at the structure of society, and we really looked at how is it that violence happens in our society. And so that was something I really, truly appreciated about my education. With that, I also volunteered with the Rape Victim Advocacy Program. Like many victim survivors, after getting the support that I really needed, I also wanted to give back. I knew what victims were up against, and I wanted to be part of that network. And so once they got me in as a volunteer, that was it. I was done. I was in it for life because I really saw how we make a difference, how we save lives, and how we give victim survivors the space to heal and regain their authenticity.
You know, on a daily basis, when you mention helping people, doesn't that make you feel good?
Yes.
That you're giving
absolutely.
back. Obviously, you've had first-hand experience, but to be able to help people, what a neat way to get up every morning and go, you know what, I'm helping folks. I think that's really cool.
I will tell you that this work, people will say all the time, Kristie, that's so hard, the work that you do. And it is. I'm not going to minimize in any way the work that our staff does, because it is incredibly difficult. But there isn't any question, it's also incredibly rewarding and honoring. And it feels like you're the one getting the gift,
Right. Yeah.
And so that's pretty stunning.
So you got out of Iowa, and then take us from there.
From there, I started out in Cedar Rapids it was the YWCA at that time.
Yeah.
And I ran their volunteer program, and I became the supervisor of their sexual assault program. Did that for about 9 years before I came back to Iowa City. My goal was kind of always to come back to Iowa City. And so I got the opportunity to, in 1993, to come back to the Domestic Violence Intervention Program, and found my home, literally found my home. Right. And I've done we joke about this at the agency, that I've done everything that you can do at DVIP except youth services, because kids figure out really quickly that I'm really cool for about 10 minutes. I'm a bit of a drama queen. And I always have the best candy in my office.
Good.
But after about 10 minutes, they're like, oh yeah, okay, they're going to keep moving. So I've done a little bit of everything there, from advocating and working in our counties to covering shelter shifts and being at our shelter services program, community engagement, and our outreach program. And then I took on the director position with the agency in 2004, and that's what I've been doing since.
So a lot of that's social work, isn't it? Would
Yes.
you consider that a lot of intervention
Absolutely.
with folks? And whatnot?
Absolutely. We have worked long with social workers in our community, both as collaborative partners, but also on staff. We have many of our staff are social workers.
So talk about your facilities and your services.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, and obviously it's DVIP month, and they may feel they're being abused at home or whatever's going on in their lives, don't know where to turn. But just talk about, and I know you're in 8 counties, right?
Yes, we are.
What are the counties?
We are in Des Moines, Cedar, Henry, Iowa, Johnson, Lee, Van Buren, and Washington counties.
Right. And I think we talked earlier, there's only 8 centers in the state of Iowa.
There are 18 programs, but there's only actually 8 emergency shelters in the entire state. Most people, when they think about domestic violence programs, they think about the 24-hour shelter, because that
Right.
was the baseline services that began 45 years ago in Iowa, were shelters. And at one point, we had 27 shelters in the state, but we're now down to 8.
Wow, it seems like a huge need there too, isn't there, for other areas?
It is,
So-
and for us, when we talk about shelter, what we have to let people know is that we're full 100% of the time. We have a 35 to 40 bed unit here in Johnson County, and for us to go below 38 is unheard of, to be blunt. We have a time period right after Christmas where it gets a little quiet, but we're full every day.
Wow.
And the really hard part of this, and this is the piece that we don't like to necessarily advertise, so I'm going to say it on a podcast, is that we turn away as many people as we shelter. That our numbers,
Facilities?
our numbers are incredibly consistent. We have about 350 people that stay in our shelter in a year, and we have about the same number of people who contact us that we can't get in because we're full. And so if somebody's in immediate danger, we will get them into a hotel. We will get them into another shelter in the area if they have space, but they face the same things that we do. And we'll try and get them to a family member or friend out of the area if that's our only option. I would say that the hotels are difficult because that's not what I would call a safe space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an expensive alternative. I don't feel like it's a good fiscal use of our funding, but it's the only alternative we have at this point.
Where do you get your funding?
We get our funding anywhere I can. How's that for an answer?
I like it. I do like it.
I've worked really hard to diversify our funding over the years. So right now, about 55% of our funding comes from municipalities. So local city government, state, and federal government. And about 45% of our funding comes from funding donations, fundraisers, and direct asks and community foundations. We could not survive without them. And actually, DVIP is incredibly successful. We actually beat the national average for nonprofits that provide human services. The national average is only 7% of their funding is typically from fundraising.
Really?
And so we've worked really hard to develop relationships and grow the support for victim survivors, because that's how we can be flexible and really be good problem solvers and look at an individual person's issues and respond directly to them.
You say you're turning folks down. Are you you have counselors all night long, 24 hours?
Yes, we do.
They have a hotline or whatever they know how to call. How do they know that number?
We put it everywhere we can, but I will tell you, word of mouth is our most successful marketing, per se. Because when victim survivors are in danger, they call somebody they trust. That's where they start. They start with a friend, they start with a family member, they may go to their faith leader, they may go to law enforcement, but that's where they start. They don't always start with looking us up. So that 24-hour hotline, we try to connect with as many groups and organizations and businesses and schools and community-based spaces as we possibly can, because we know that that's how we get to victim survivors.
What's your relationship with law enforcement?
Oh, it's fabulous. I would say that in Johnson County, we've actually nationally been recognized for what's called a DART program. That's a domestic abuse response team. And the way that we work with law enforcement, and we've been actually doing this for a little over 25 years, which is why the success and the atmosphere in law enforcement in specifically Johnson County has changed so much and is so positive. The DART team is a trio of the Johnson County County Attorney's Office, the Iowa City Police Department, and the Domestic Violence Intervention Program. And whenever law enforcement go out to the scene of a domestic, they assign a detective to that case. It's a domestic violence trained detective. And that detective, when they go out and do follow-up investigation, always is accompanied by one of our advocates.
Oh, really?
And the goal of that is to make sure that victims have all of the information and support that they need in responding to the trauma that's been perpetrated against them, and that they have a good understanding of what's going to happen with the system, the criminal justice system, and that somebody is there to back them up, to be their voice when needed, and to support their needs and their rights. Law enforcement are fabulous, but they have a job to do. They have a very specific goal, and that goal is to represent the state of Iowa and to put together a case with their investigation and the gathering of evidence that will support the county attorney's office in a positive conviction rate for individuals who break Iowa laws, right? Yeah. And so the county attorney's office and the police department work together to accomplish something that's very important to our community, and that's to hold somebody accountable when they've committed a crime. But the needs of the victim are not aligned with that, right?
Right.
Which is just a reality for that victim survivor. And so having that third party, having that advocate there for them and who is going to walk with them and be a shield for them is so critical and is really respected in our community, and that's important.
So if you get a call at 2 a.m., the police respond to some case, you have one of your folks there with them? Mm-hmm. Really? No matter what time it is?
We won't typically go out on the actual police call. We're there for the follow-up investigation. But if somebody is injured or somebody needs to come into shelter or the hospital has somebody who comes in, we do have advocates 24 hours a day that go out for that. Okay. So the actual police call, law enforcement need to do their job at that point, and we're going to just be in the midst of it. and that's not necessarily helpful. And you really need to give that victim survivor a moment to gather themselves and to know that the community supports them. And so coming in with that investigator is really about giving that victim survivor then the lay of the land and what their resources and options are. When you're in the midst of the trauma, that stuff is not always, that's not your primary focus at that time.
Is there some things that you could suggest to victims on to do or not to do as they're being abused or in a relationship?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing for victim survivors is to trust their own instincts and to really think critically about who they trust and who are safe people in their lives. I'll start there.
Okay.
And the reason I want to start there is because I want to go back for a second and talk about how batterers do what they do. Domestic violence is one of the few crimes where the person who's committing it has an incredible amount of leverage, an incredible amount of knowledge, and an incredible amount of access. And so you
what
and
kind
I...
of leverage?
Well, you and I had talked about this at one time, Gary, and I'm going to bring you back to it. I want you to think about the one person in your life that knows you better than anybody else.
Right.
Get that person in your mind. They may be your intimate partner. They may be your best friend. They may be a family member.
Mm-hmm.
Now what I want you to do is I want you to think about what would it take to keep you safe from that one person that knows everything if they were inclined to use violence to get what they wanted from you. This is a person who knows all of your family. They have access to your home. They have access to your income. They have access to all of your legal documents. They have access to your schedule. They know where you are at any given time. They know what scares you. They know what you're proud of. They know what you're not so proud of. They know who you love more than your own life. They know who you would give anything for, your life for, to keep them safe. What would it take to keep you safe from the one person that has all of that leverage and has all of that access and has all of that knowledge? As perpetrators of crime, batterers are incredibly well equipped. That's the only way I can put it. And so for victim survivors, when they're thinking about what they need, how they're going to live through this, how they're going to survive it, and how they're going to potentially escape it, that is a complex and very difficult environment. And you have to have appropriate support and resources to escape that finally. I'll also take you back to what we said earlier about how batterers stalk their intimate partners, because not only does this person know everything about you, but they're likely to stalk you for the next 2 years after you leave. It's incredibly difficult.
How did you get that data? I mean, the 2 years, is that just by interviewing folks that?
No, that's actually from the FBI. That's
it is?
actually, that's out of the Justice Department, and they published a tremendous amount of crime data every year, and that's information that they make available based on the information that comes from domestic violence programs and criminal data from across the country.
Do the batterers know they're battering their partner?
Oh, absolutely.
They do know. And back to it's a control thing, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, it's one of the things I did in my career in doing domestic violence work. For 5 years, I also worked with batterers. I worked with in partnership with the Department of Corrections, doing batterers education program classes. And what I will tell you is that the individuals who were in the groups, and I worked primarily with men's groups, they knew what they were doing was wrong. I would argue there were some who were completely fine with it. There were others who were not and were really struggling. And but they all knew that it wasn't okay. There wasn't any question in their mind that it wasn't okay. And here's what we know is that batterers do make choices. They make them all the time. In Iowa, and this is a stat that it's older, so I would probably benefit from getting new information. But in Iowa, about 86% of individuals who batter have no other criminal record. Wow. And they also self-disclose that they are not physically violent towards other people in their lives, like their boss, their best friend, their neighbor, their family. And so if domestic violence were, many people assume it's like a mental illness,
Right.
or they assume it is an anger management problem. If that were the case, you would have batterers who were getting arrested for beating up their neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have them arrested for beating up on somebody at work that they got super angry at. But that's not the case. They make very specific decisions about how and where and when they batter. And so they know it's wrong. We have, like I said before, there are batterers who are like, yeah, it's fine. I don't have a problem. I believe that I'm the one who's supposed to be in charge. I believe I'm the one who's supposed to make the decisions. And if my partner does something I don't agree with, I believe it's okay to punish them. You have a group of batterers that are enmeshed in that perspective space. You also have a group of batterers who are making choices that they're not particularly proud of, but they're not well equipped, and they are maybe taking the easy route, taking something that works, and they are pushing that.
Does that mean taking it out on their partner, or when they're upset or something? Is that the easy way?
I think from their perspective, it's the easy way. I think that the social construct we live in, certainly violence is a tool that is used to solve problems all over the globe. There is no question that violence is seen as a tool. And for batterers, it's a tool in their arsenal. I mean, it's a tool in anybody's arsenal because it exists, right? But every day you make decisions about what you think are the right and wrong things to do in order to solve your problems.
Right.
So,
do you ever get, and I understand you also help batterers, right? Can they counsel with you?
Not at DVIP directly, but we do connect them with Department of Corrections and other resources in the community. I do believe that as a society, we are not yet at a place where we're truly addressing how batterers are making decisions, the belief systems that they're acting out of, and the mental health environment that they're working from, right? That's not something we're really addressing in our society. We're still very much in a space of trauma response, and so we are making a response to victim survivors, but not really looking at changing the problem.
What kind of resources would you need to be more of an advocate for the root cause of the issues?
Oh, that's such a huge question.
Once in a while, I come up with a good one.
Oh, that's a huge one. That's a huge one. We talk about this. I've been doing this for a long time, right? And there are things that I think we do that are so stunning. But I will tell you, there are also basics that just drive me nuts. I don't have another way to put it. To say no to somebody when they are asking for emergency shelter.
Yeah, that's hard.
Is incredibly painful, To reach out and ask somebody for that kind of support in this day and age in our society says what that person is facing, right? Because there's still that kind of image of victims. When we use that word victim, we see somebody as less than, right? And that's so wrong. It's so wrong. The amount of strength and courage that it takes to live in that environment and survive and keep your children safe if you have children takes such tremendous creativity, takes such tremendous resourcefulness, takes such tremendous courage. And to reach out and tell somebody about it when, society still asks that question, why does she stay? Well, the implication of asking a question like that is that there's something wrong with somebody, right?
Right.
And so, I think that when I look at what would really make the advocacy different is not having to say no to the most basic needs. That would make a huge, huge difference.
So part of it is helping more people, which
Yes.
obviously leads into your new building you're doing.
Yes.
And so you're going from, we're segueing
From
into
35
that a little bit.
beds, we're going from
To
35 to 70.
In private
So-
apartments, right, or kind of their own space.
Yeah, we're calling it pod style living, and I need to come up with a better word than that because it feels a little weird. But the way it's designed is there are living room kitchenettes,
Okay.
and the living room kitchenettes have 4 bedrooms with 4 bathrooms attached to them. And the unit is designed so that people can have autonomous, private, trauma-informed space. Right now, we have 35 people who are sharing one large kitchen. It's got 4 stoves in it and 2 really, really huge refrigerators. But it's got one living room. It's got one play area. And if you have suffered a significant amount of trauma, you need community. You need to have the support of other victim survivors right there with you, but you also need privacy. You also need a space to retreat to and for respite. And so the idea of the new shelter is that we're creating both spaces. We're still going to have those community spaces. We're still going to have the playroom. Oh my goodness. I can't wait for people to see that.
The children come with
Yes. Half the people staying in our shelter are kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Most people don't. Of the
Yeah.
35 people that are there, it's 15 to 20 of them are kids.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just figured it was a partner or whatever.
No.
It isn't.
No.
That's amazing.
And,
The kids don't know what's going on, do they?
Oh, unfortunately, they do.
They do.
They absolutely know. I have
interesting.
seen infants with failure to thrive issues. I've seen adolescents who are struggling with making decisions about violence and how they interact and problem solve in schools. And I've seen teenagers who are in their first relationships and really trying to figure that out. Kids always know. And what I will tell you is the parent who's being abused will always try and protect their children and will always try and keep that information from their children. And many are, I'm going to put success in quotes because unfortunately kids do always know. They may not see it, but they always hear it. They always know it. They always feel the tension. They always feel the trauma that's happening within that household. And so, the kids space is going to be amazing.
That's
We're
great.
so excited.
Good.
So,
They have like a library for the kids and read books and all kinds
absolutely.
of toys.
Oh my goodness.
Is
yes.
there a playground?
Yes.
Oh, good.
We are going to have a playground that's accessible.
Good.
We're joking about the fact that we're going to have the space that it's designed so that kids, whether their physical abilities are one direction or another, that you can ride around it and it's going to feel like a ramp around a playground area.
Oh, really?
So it's going to be a lot of fun. But for us, the biggest and most important thing we do with kids is let them be kids. Give them a
have
space
fun.
where they can just play and talk if they need to, because eventually they always do. And because they always have questions and they're trying to understand what's happening to their family. And so really it's about giving them a space.
When folks come to see you, and obviously that's a traumatic time for anybody that would come into a shelter because they obviously feel they need to be somewhere safe. Tell us a little bit about the counseling. I mean, do you leave them alone a little bit? Do you see them daily? Do religious leaders come and help them? Other folks? Do teachers come and help talk to their kids and help them with education? I mean, just tell me a little more about the process inside the shelter.
Absolutely. And I would argue the process inside the shelter and outside are very similar, because we'll serve about 300, like last year was 352 individuals in our shelter, but we serve another 2,100 out in our 8 counties. And our process is very similar. Our services are completely voluntary. So if somebody comes into shelter, they get to choose what aspects of our service they use. There is no question we have individuals who come in and the trauma is such that they just need respite. They just need a place to be, to get their head together and to figure out, what they want to do and just rest. There are also individuals who come into our shelter that they may have tried to leave a couple times and have not been successful, and so they come to us and they have goals. They know exactly what they want, where they want to be, and how soon they want to get there. And so our entire mission is to walk alongside that person and be a resource for information, referrals, and the steps that it takes to get accomplished what it is that they want to accomplish, whether it's the respite end or the goals end, doesn't matter. We have staff that are available to our clients 24 hours a day, and we have services that range from individual counseling to support groups to the advocacy piece, which may mean that we accompany somebody to school because their kids are struggling and they want to talk with the teacher. Or it may be that we're working with an employer of one of our clients who the abusive partner is threatening them and showing up at work. And that employer is trying to figure out how to keep everybody safe and how to respond to what's happening for that individual who's being threatened. To working with law enforcement, like we mentioned earlier, to working with the Department of Human Services, who is looking at family safety and how to make sure and ensure that kids are safe in that home environment. Probably one of our biggest services is our housing services, just assisting people with locating appropriate housing, assisting with rent and with utilities and deposits, and getting somebody started. We have relationships with nonprofits across the community, and those relationships are all about the fact that we can't do everything, and we're not experts in everything, and so we all work together to share and to get information to the people that we're serving.
How do you have legal aid? Do you have lawyers that will come in and help folks?
We don't personally have lawyers, but we do work with Iowa Legal Aid.
Okay.
And we have a list of attorneys that we work with in the community who have done pro se work
Okay.
and have provided resources.
Okay. So if somebody's there, how long can they stay with you?
In our shelter, they can stay in our shelter 45 days,
Okay.
which is a drop in the bucket. I'm just going to name it.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult. And the reason it's 45 days is because we only have 8 shelters and the need is so high. And so at one point, prior to the major shift in how many shelters were in Iowa, we actually had a 90-day stay. And if I could go back to that, I would do it in a minute. I absolutely would. But we would end up turning away probably 600 to 700 people if we did that.
Wow. So 45 days, do you find them apartments, or where do they live, or do they?
If we can, we absolutely do. We work really closely with Shelter House and with other programs, general aid, things like that out of Johnson County, to assist with housing. And 45 days is not a lot. Obviously, if somebody is coming to the end of their 45 days and they can't get in their apartment for 2 weeks, we're not kicking them out. That's not happening. But because right now our actual average length of stay is 48 days, which tells you a lot about how accessible housing is right now. It's difficult to find.
So somebody obviously needs a lot of help. They could need financial aid, legal aid. Is there any financial aid for somebody if they were in a relationship, and let's say they don't work? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. How do you help those folks that are fleeing some situation they need some help with? As they go on with their lives, how do they get help or reach out?
We do have some aid. What I will say is that has changed dramatically since the end of the pandemic. It's gone down pretty significantly.
The type of aid,
the type of aid, the funding that's available. And so we do have some. It is routine for us to hit caps. So, for example, we were able to make our money stretch this year, and we didn't have to say no until the end of August. We had a new contract starting in October. And so we actually only went about a month where we had almost nothing to be able to use for direct aid. But we will typically assist with deposit and a month or two, depending on what the amount is and what we've got going on at that time with how many people are asking. We try and spread it as far as we can and try and connect victims to multiple resources. So they may get a little bit from us. They may get a little bit from their faith community. They may get a little bit from Johnson County. They may get a little from Shelter. We'll try and do the puzzle where we put all of the pieces together to get them where they need to be.
So each victim or each person is a puzzle.
Yes.
They all have different
absolutely.
needs, family, not family, whatever. They're alone. They don't. So I can see where every day you get up, it's challenging, isn't it? Just from a standpoint of the need. If you could build the facility you want, would it be 150 beds or 150 apartments?
Yeah, if it would be a combination. Actually, it would be a combination of apartments and shelter bed spaces. I would have a lot more staff. One of the things we haven't talked about is Cooper's House, which is our pet facility.
Oh, really? Oh, tell us about that.
Because one of our primary goals is to really look at the barriers to victims getting access to safety. And more than 70% of the victims we work with have pets.
Really?
And 50% of that group will not leave without their pet because I don't know about you. I have a dog. She is family.
Yeah.
That is the bottom
They're
line.
more than family.
That's right. That's right. You know the joke when you're having a really, really bad day. It's like humans, not so much. Furry critters, let's go.
They still love you.
That's right. That's right. And so for us, we've had a pet fund. We've worked with and supported pets for more than 20 years. But about not quite 10 years ago, we actually got support from a national organization to build some kennels at our shelter so that families could bring pets with them. And that's what Cooper's House is. And we're the only domestic violence shelter in Iowa that does that. And
is that next to your shelter? Cooper's?
It's part of it. It is part. We actually have the kennels inside our shelter.
Because I think the rehab or what do we call rehabilitation is with your pet. You love
it's
your pet.
Huge.
You don't want to miss
huge.
your pet.
That's right.
And
so Red Rover and Greater Giving and a couple of other organizations locally are helping us expand Cooper's House in the new shelter. And so we've got 2 kennels right now. We're going to have 5 kennels, and those kennels are going to be much more flexible in the kinds of animals we can support. What people don't know, if people think pets, they think dogs and cats, which is who can come to shelter. But we also have horses and cows and pigs and ducks and chickens and snakes and rats and fish, and I'm trying to think of what I haven't mentioned. We've helped them all, and many of them in the last year.
Really?
So, we work with, livestock. We work with pets. I mean, it's stunning to me, just the kind of support that's really needed. When you ask that question, what would you have? That's the kind of thing I look at is what are the things that are actually barriers to victims? And
A lot of pets.
Yeah, pets are a piece of it. Family's a piece of it. Housing's a huge piece of it. And just having access to the legal services and legal resources that you need
Would be helpful.
can be a huge barrier. Yeah.
So, and as far as abuse goes, a lot of people may not realize what abuse is. It's not just physical. A lot of people, I think it's, they're being abused physically, but a lot of it's mental, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Emotional abuse is a significant part of what happens. We talk about domestic violence as a pattern of behaviors that one person uses to gain control in an intimate relationship. Physical violence or sexual violence, that's the enforcer. That's the thing that holds it all together. But there's a whole series of things that happen from manipulation and exploitation to emotional abuse to coercion and threats to financial abuse. That is one of the hugest pieces of this in terms of barriers. If I can cut you off from resources, it's a heck of a lot easier for me to control you and keep you from leaving, right? And so that whole series of behaviors may start out subtle. It may start out with, one day your partner saying, yeah, I really wish you looked like her. She looks really good, And it's a subtle ding, right? Until it gets to the point where I'm telling you that, if you leave me, I will kill you.
Right.
And
Threats.
so the way that I explain it is domestic violence is problem solving for a batterer. It's like, what will get me what I want? And so if I can get away with making you feel bad about yourself, or if I can get away with, twisting that button that really just makes you shut down, then that's what I'll do, right? But if I have to escalate to get what I want, I'll do that too. And each batterer has in their own mind or has in their own belief system how far they'll go to get what they want. Some batterers will never beat their partner, but will control every other aspect of their life. Other batterers beat their partner weekly.
And as far as batter, it's men and women, isn't it? I mean, it's not just a male, female thing. I mean, it's both sides of the
It is both sides of the coin. We know that I'm going to go to society as a whole. Violence in general in the United States is committed primarily by men, about 85% of it. What we know about domestic violence is criminally and statistically that overwhelmingly men batter women, right? But what we also know is that men are battered by men, women are battered by women, and women absolutely batter men. We know that that happens in same-sex relationship. Domestic violence happens at the same rate that it does in heterosexual relationships. And for women battering men, I would argue that if you look at today's tools like technology and income and things like that, the resources are there. There is no such thing as a specific victim or a specific batterer. The behaviors are always the same.
Right. Let's go into, obviously it's Domestic Violence Month, so, and let's go back to the building. So you got 70 units, a kind of apartment style, right, which sounds really neat. And you got basically some area for pets, which I think, I didn't know that, that's great. You're raising money. Is the target like 6-7 million, and you've raised like 4.5, 5? Is that? Can you tell us a little bit more about fundraising, what you're trying to do, and understand that Hodge Construction's building your building, which are great people, and it's underway, and you're still raising money and still need money. So let's talk a little bit about how we can do something positive for the community and for what you folks do.
Absolutely. So we were really, really lucky in that we had some tremendous support and tremendous resources as we started putting this project together. We've been working on it for 10 years.
Wow.
We started our campaign about 2 years ago, and we're at 4.7 million. And our goal was 6 million. And that was devised through the work of research and community interviews and just information based on who our supporters are, who our potential supporters could be. And so that $6 million goal has been our goal for the last 3 years. Started our campaign 2 years ago. We're at 4.7. And we have been hitting our benchmarks, and I'm really, really proud of what we've done so far. Of course, construction with the pandemic has been a challenge. So our hard costs are going to be about 6.5 with our ultimate goal of 7 million to cover any contingency or issues that might come up over the next 10 months. We started construction in early July and expect to be done by the end of June in 2024. So it's a 12-month build.
Good. And so then you just transfer over at that time, right?
Yes.
Just move everything in and whatnot. So you need to raise about another, $1.25 million or so?
Yes. And we are constantly doing fundraising. We're constantly doing, grants and direct asks. We have had tremendous support. And so, we've got good grants out right now, but every single dollar counts. And anybody who's done any fundraising knows that it's the $25, $50, $100, $1,000, $10,000 gifts that are your bread and butter. They're the ones that get you there. We've got the big gifts. We've got those. We hit anybody who's done capital campaigns knows that it's literally math. You have to have a certain number of big gifts. You have to have a certain number of medium-sized. You have to have a certain number of small ones. We've hit our benchmarks for our big gifts.
Is that matched by the feds or state? When you're raising a certain amount of private funds, do the grants come in and kick in?
They do, but it's not a match in the sense that it's automatic. We have to ask for it, but they will look at how much support do you have from your community. And if they see that we have support in our community, they're more likely to invest and say, yeah, you've got your foundation. You've got your foundation of supporters, and so we're putting our money in a good place. And at this point, we are getting almost $1.5 million of that 4.7 is from federal and state and local municipalities, because they know that we've got another $3 million from our communities.
Committed to. So, and then talk about gifts. I understand that can be over a 5-year period. It's a pledge.
Yes, we are working with a 5-year pledge, and we really work with people in what works best for them. And we're very flexible. We have many ways to give, whether that be online, whether that be through just a check, cash, any kind of stocks, anything along that line. We really try to be as flexible as we can.
That's good. And then any estate planning? Have you had any of that?
Absolutely. We've been really lucky in that we've been able to, with our 40th anniversary, we were able to establish an endowment, and that has helped us with the estate planning and our relationship with the Johnson County Community Foundation and other resources like United Way, and the community has really helped us show our donors and our supporters that this is a solid investment.
So if somebody is listening and they want to help, they feel compelled to help, how do they do that?
I would encourage them to check out our website. That's probably the easiest way to give.
Okay.
And that is www.dvipiowa.org.
Okay.
So DVIP, as in our acronym, Domestic Violence Intervention Program, Iowa, all one word, .org. Yeah. And we have a donate page there. And then the other thing you can do is always call our program. And our community engagement director will meet and just talk you through our project and let you know what we're doing and how we've met our goals and where we still need to get to.
Great. So it's Domestic Awareness Month.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a new building going on, which has
do.
got to be exciting. Tell us about your staff.
Oh,
I know
my
you
staff.
said you need more staff, but
Always.
I can't even I don't know any of them, but I'm just imagine they're amazing. And you got to be so tickled every day to know that you got great folks with you.
We do. And the staff at DVIP, ride or die, that's the only word for it, ride or die. They are amazing people. They do this work because of their belief systems, their values, and the change that they want to make in this world. And they are, oh my God, the breadth of knowledge and the breadth of compassion.
Can't explain it.
You can't. I could not have done this work as long as I've done it because I've been in it for a while. I started in '86, right? I could not do this work if it wasn't for the partnerships and the team at DVIP.
How many folks?
Well, we're at 35.
You have 35 folks working?
We have 35 folks
Have
working
most
for
of them
us.
had any abuse in their background?
Some of them do.
Some of them do?
Yeah,
So
there
firsthand.
isn't any question. Similar to myself, individuals come to this work because of their experiences, and they find out what their skills and their assets are, and say, "Yeah, I'm going to put this to work here and do good," right? And they get it. But what I will say is that just as many of my staff don't have the experience and absolutely get it, because we know that 1 in 4 women are battered and 1 in 7 men are battered in our communities. And so even if they haven't personally experienced it, they know somebody.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. One of the comments that we always kind of joke a little bit about is when we go out into the community and we're socializing. It's got nothing to do with DVIP. We're not doing any work. It's like, do you say where you work? Because if I say I'm the director of the Domestic Violence Intervention Program, I'm going to be working because somebody's going to say, oh, can I tell you about my sister and what she's dealing with? Can I ask you a question? Right? And so you have to take care of yourself.
So what do you say where you work?
I will say that I do
social.
human services work when I'm being social and I need a break and
otherwise it never shuts off because you already got somebody in your ear all the time. Right?
Yeah.
So is there a way to volunteer? You have 35 folks. Is there a way to help your organization volunteer-wise? What would be some things other than money? What can you do for you guys?
Volunteers do a little bit of everything. We have some volunteers that all they do is drive people around. We have some volunteers who help with our Cooper's House because there are a lot of people who love animals out there. And we have people who just play with kids. We also have people who are trained, who are certified victim advocates, and will accompany victims to court. And we'll go with them to the police station or we'll assist them with housing. We have volunteers who answer our crisis line. We have volunteers that do paperwork and help with statistics and donations. Oh my God, our donations. This community is so stunning. The in-kind donations that we get of clothing and diapers and baby food and just all of those things that you use in your house every day that we use times 20. We literally spend 2 hours a day on sorting donations.
You can bring them into you folks?
Yes.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, we absolutely have a couple different resources in the community. We have a drop-off location at the Gloria Day Church. That's the one that has the most availability.
Right downtown
on Market Street.
Market, right there in the corner of Clinton and Market.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And so they have the most hours available that you can just go and drop stuff off. We also have our admin offices at 1105 Gilbert Court. And that's something you have to call and make an appointment for, because our staff are in and out so much we can never guarantee there's actually somebody there. And so that's an appointment thing where somebody can call our business line, which is 351-1043, and get connected to our volunteer coordinator and in-kind donations managers and get that all set. But we also have like stuff, et cetera. If you donate something to us and take it there instead, that funding or the money that comes from the sale of those items is then available for victims to be able to go in and get something they specifically need. So, for example, we had somebody who had a new baby in our shelter, and they needed a play set, like a little playpen. I don't know what they call them now.
Yeah, playpen.
Yeah. So, we didn't have one. She needed one, and because of our relationship with Stuff, et cetera, we could go and get one for her, because people will drop off donations there for us, put it in our name, and then the resources that gains makes it easy for victim survivors. So, yeah.
Well, I think we could go all day, but just to sum it up, you got a fabulous new building going on.
Yes.
Still need to raise some money.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's always part of the equation.
It is.
You can volunteer. Mm-hmm. You can drop off goods. What did I miss?
Other than some events that we've got coming up, I could rattle some of those. Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us real quick what
some of the things that we've got going on that I think are absolutely the most fun things we do every year.
Okay.
For example, Shop for Shelter. Shop for Shelter is on October 14th. It is one morning only every year, but what it does is it gets us all the food we need for almost 10 months at our shelter. Yeah, so at all of the Hy-Vees and Fairways in Johnson County, if you go, you will see one of our volunteers at the door who will give you one of our shopping lists. And it has our immediate needs on it, so it might have something like cooking oil or rice or cereal, right? Yeah. And if you buy one or two items off of our shopping list and put it in our shopping cart, that stuff is amazing. And literally, we get enough for 10 months of supplies.
That's fantastic.
And so, that's on October 14th.
14th in the morning, right?
It's from 9 until 2. And like I said, at all the Hy-Vees and all of the Fairways in Johnson County. Another thing that we do that I love is that we have a safety for Suites for Safety, where we go to all of the law enforcement in our 8-county service area, the EMTs, and all of the public safety officials in our 8-county service area and take them cookies. And we're going to be doing that throughout the month. And if you like to bake cookies, I want you to call us.
I like to eat them.
I know. I can bake them. It's just finding time. Finding the time. But if you like to bake cookies, we prefer to give fresh baked cookies to our partners in emergency safety. We really do. They're fabulous, and they make all the difference in the world for victim survivors.
I don't know if anybody's going to turn down a good chocolate chip cookie, right?
I know. And then we also have on October 18th, we have we're going to have a book reading group, and it's going to be at Sidekick Coffee and Books. And the book that we're reading is Made: Hard Work, Low Pay, and A Mother's Will to Survive. Some of you may have seen this. It's been on one of the HBO, Netflix recently, the TV version of it. But it's a fabulous, fabulous book.
Where's Sidekick Coffee? Sorry.
Sidekick Coffee. Oh, gosh, you're going to ask me
it's
that.
Sidekick.
Sidekick. Yeah. And I don't have that address here. Oh, no, that's quite all right. I would be interested in checking out Sidekick Coffee
Austin
personally.
Can look it up here. We can tell if it's Sidekick. There it is.
There it is.
Where is it, Austin?
It's at 1310 Melrose Avenue.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's in that new building up U Heights.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so I would highly encourage people, if they love to read books and want to have a fabulous conversation.
My daughter reads books. So
have her come out for that, because it really, the thing I loved about it, because I watched the series before I read the book, but the thing I loved about it was that it really showed the absolute circle that we sometimes make victims run in order to get the support they need. And it's not a compliment when I say that. It's really not a compliment to our communities or our society, where we say to somebody, in order to keep your kids, you have to have a job. In order to have a job, you have to have childcare. If you don't have childcare, you can't get the job. And if you don't have a car, you're certainly not getting to that job, right? And so there's this really circular kind of thing that we do to victim survivors that if we just dealt with some basic needs would just change the tide for them and make it make safety a real thing for them.
What's the name of the book again?
Made. And it's called Made, Hard Work, Low Pay, and a Mother's Will to Survive.
It's a great book.
Yes.
Well, Kristie, I just want to thank you for coming in. It's Domestic Awareness Month, obviously Violence Month. Got great things that you can give back to. What a necessary part of our community you guys fulfill.
Thank you.
That, I mean, it's just, to me, the type, 35 folks that work with you are amazing.
Yes, they are.
I always thought that when I was in the hospital with nurses, I always just have a deep appreciation of what nurses do, and they take care of you. Obviously, with what you guys do, it is taking care of people in a time of need. Mm-hmm. The community needs it. It shows us all that, you need to raise money. You got other things going on there and volunteer your time, but it's a definite need. It helps enhance our community with these kind of services. And I can't thank you enough, and I can't thank your team enough. So appreciate it. And if you've been listening to us, give them some money. Get out there, you guys, and take care of these folks. I think you could appreciate it. And good luck with your new building. And excited to see it, and see also the part with the dogs and cats, or whatever, the kennel area. That's kind of intriguing to me. So again, it's Domestic Awareness Month, October. You got a lot of things happening to raise money and to give back to the community, and highly encourage everybody to look into it and get on your website. And again, what's your website? Our website is dvipiowa.org. We also have a lot of social media. Facebook, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. So that's where you'll always find what's happening right now. Great. And so, we appreciate all of the support. I always look at our community as investing in victim safety, and I can't say how much I appreciate that about Johnson County and our larger community. Kristie, thanks again for coming in. Have a good one. My pleasure, absolutely.